Hello, groundlings. It's me. I thought I'd better check in and see how you are and say hello. Regular viewers might be forgiven for thinking that going to ground has somewhat run into the ground over the last few weeks, and certainly I've posted rather less frequently than hitherto. But you've been much in mind, and it's great to get back in touch today on Passion Sunday, the beginning of Passiontide, the last lap of Lent, and the final furlong, when we, in this fortnight, Christians think more particularly about the cross. Obviously, Christians are always thinking about the cross. In fact, here's my palm cross in my pen pot on my desk from last year. Palm Sunday next week, but Passion Sunday is 2 weeks ahead of Easter, and it's kind of like setting our course for the cross in this last fortnight of Lent. And there's much to update you about from the last few weeks of a going to ground nature, not least my recent visit to the island of Sark, which is a singular place. And for those interested in place, faith and landscape, as you probably are if you're watching this, there's so much I want to share about that. And I was so sorry not to be able to post from the island itself, but I was working from dawn till dusk, and such an interesting place. And dusk itself is extremely dusky because there are no street lamps on Sark. It's the original dark sky island. In the part of the Church of England where I work, the Diocese of Salisbury in Wiltshire and Dorset, we now have an affiliation to the Channel Islands, so I do go over there to work periodically. And but Sark is among the smallest of the inhabited islands. About 300 or 400 people permanently live on the island, and but there are they have their own rules and laws and government. There are no cars on Sark, just donkey carts and tractors. There are no tarmac roads, no police. There's a school, but they have worked out their own way of living. I mean, it's an extraordinary challenge for a small island to think, how can we retain our distinctiveness, live close to the land, live close to each other, depend on each other as small island communities do, and yet be part of the modern world. That's the challenge for them. And so much I'm going to be reflecting on there, and more I will share, I think, over the days to come. But this morning I had, because I was working yesterday, I had a morning off services, and I woke up missing theology. Reading theological books is something that I've enjoyed so much over the years, and I do so much less of it than I used to. I've written quite a lot of theology as well, and I woke up longing for just a bit of quiet reflection in an old book. So I picked up this book about one of my theological heroes, F.D. Maurice, from the 19th century. Not only has he a fine pair of sideburns, but he had a broad range of sympathies, great social conscience, one of the first Christian socialists, and he thought deeply about God and about society. And I just thought I'd share with you a sentiment he shared. It was in the first chapter I read. It's a book about him and his times. And whenever so often when I read Maurice, there's an interesting morsel to chew on. So listen to this. It's a real going to ground sort of thought. He writes this: my business, because I am a theologian and have no vocation except for theology, is not to build, but to dig. I'm a digger, only a digger. I dig to show that economics and politics must have a ground beneath themselves, that society is not to be made anew by arrangements of ours, but is to be regenerated by finding the law and the ground of its order and harmony. It's that's a theme that Bonhoeffer picked up in the 1940s. He was very interested in the ground of existence. The only secret of its existence, he writes, in God. Many would disagree, but Morris saw God as the ground of being, as many philosophers and theologians have done. But I love that idea of his. It's it's a sort of archaeological role, task rather, to get into the archaeology of ideas and to look beneath society, not just to try and build on top of what's already there, but to look at the foundations. What's its undergirding? What are the ideas that will actually enable things to stand? It's a bit like Jesus' parable of the house builders. You know, are we building on rock or are we building on sand? And in Passiontide, as we think about the cross, I'm interested in looking to see what are the signs of the cross, of the Easter story, the Passion story, having influenced our national and local life. A little bit like in some of the historic sites around here, the Neolithic sites, particularly near Stonehenge and at Avebury too. Some of the features of the landscape were not just standing stones, but standing pillars of wood, and a lot of those stones and pillars and so on are gone. In fact, of course, all the wooden ones have gone. But there's a place called the Sanctuary, just up the road from here, which was a complex arrangement of stones, and they found out where they were by digging down and finding the places where there's evidence of the soil having been affected by the minerals of the stones that were there or disturbed, and the same with with what's called Woodhenge over by Stonehenge. They found out precisely where those stumps of trees were put into the soil, and we might think that there must be, if that's from 3,000 plus years ago, there must in the Holy Land be a disruption to the soil and the landscape where the actual cross of Christ was jammed in, and there are clear indications, more symbolically, of the cross in our society. We find it in the names of things, the names of streets and communities, villages, towns, and so on, but also in the undergirding of our common life, our charitable life, our institutions and laws, the idea of redemption and all sorts of things that we've explored over the years. Anyway, just a nice idea to come back to these short films to be a digger. Look for the ideas beneath things, and whatever you believe. You may well not be a Christian yourself, but whatever your interest and your beliefs, let's be diggers and find out what underlies things, because surely our society now and our world today needs firm foundations under what we believe. It's not just short-term solutions dreamt up on the spot, but underpinnings that can bear the weight of the future that we have to find together. Well, that's my thought for today, and it's lovely to be back again. God bless you as you go to ground.